Let's face it, we composers are loners. Hello there, my name is Eluukkanen, aka Eluukkanen, and I'm a composer from Finland. I make music as my living, as a freelancer for games, videos and films and etc. And today, here at Composer Topics, we're going to be talking about thing which is not discussed about in composer communities. And that's that we composers are loners, really. Many people might get many ideas why I'm saying that, but the thing is that we composers are in our own bubbles in many times. I myself have been going to hundreds of music and composer communities, and more often than not, people do not see each other as these collaborative fellows or other colleagues, as some areas of expertise say to each other. They see each other as rivals, more or less. Like you remember, perhaps you have watched Pokemon, and there's these Ash and Gary, these trying to be Pokemon masters, and they are rivals to each other, and they are putting monsters fight against each other. But composing is not like that, and you might be wondering why I'm even saying that people see each other as rivals, but that's true. So many composers I've met, they do not say it directly, but it's there. People have these kind of, okay, they smile and they say, oh, nice to see you and stuff. You can get this air and feeling from them that they are not your really allies. And I, myself as a composer, don't really get it. Because more oftentimes than not, if we put each other to these bubbles that, alright, that's how the composer, I can't really talk with him about any meaningful ideas because I fears he's going to steal those ideas. And to that I have to say, okay, it's true. The composers I've met and I've talked about my ideas, some of them implement and try out the ideas I shared them, and that's okay. But the thing is, at the other side of the spectrum, if I share something to them and they share something to myself, there's so much potential we can do together. It's interesting because the whole rivalry and discussion about, okay, I can't really trust you because you're going to get my jobs, and we're competing on the same jobs. We composers are not really competing on the same jobs in the same sense that if you are trying to apply, or let's say like a job or something like that, there's not really that much competition, because even though there's a lot of composers and many people share their music in many places, it's not like a sport competition. When people make music, they try to make something that resonates with people. They try to make something that some people somewhere says, hey, I like that. And at the same time, when they share their music to others, they might not like it as much. And I have seen it as a composer myself. I know this from the very experience I've had when sharing music. But the thing is, when you're applying as an artist, as a composer to jobs, let's say like a game project or film project, you need to only make this one guy who's at the top like your music. And that's much more easier than just going around and share your music to hundreds of people and trying to gather a fan base. And I can't understand why so few composers say that, alright, it's so hard to get jobs, you can't really live as a composer, when a composer as size of me, which is not that big of a size when you think about it, has able to gather, this amount of following, which is quite remarkable, and also I'm able to live from my work. Yes, I'm able to actually sell what I do as my work. So I don't really buy the feel that, hey, there's this rivalry and we are enemies and that sort of thing, because more often times than not, these composers could make connections, help each other out, make collaborations. And I feel in other art communities this is much more prevalent than in composer communities, because they make more collaborations and whatnot, at least from my experience, what I've seen. Perhaps I'm in a only music creation bubble. But what I have to tell you to these composers and the communities and the ideas they spread, the ideas that go around feed each other. Like this, that alright, composers are enemies, and when they are enemies they don't share that much information and feedback and thoughts with each other, and that leads to fewer collaborations and few contacts and networking. And at the same time, composers say, I can't make my living, how can I get to projects, I cannot sell my stuff, what's the problem? But the problem, my dear friends, is in the composers themselves. The mindset that has been built upon composers. It's not the full fault of people part of it, because the composing as an area of expertise is about people telling their stories, expressing their thoughts, and trying to build this world and get people excited about it. And it's very self-centered art form, and it's no wonder why people get so self-centered in their struggles to get and become the composer they want to become. But more often than not, composers look at each other and perhaps envy the fame the others have gained, and do not realize that people do not want you to become the next Hans Zimmer, because the Hans Zimmer already exists. The composers do not understand that they have their own stories to tell, their own worlds to explore and to get people excited about them. This all is connected to composers making money in the end, because so many... I had this surprising factor when I watched discussion going in the biggest groups and with the biggest contributors of that group, that people can't make money as a composer. But it's not really that. Composers can get money out of their works, and it's just that most of the composers, what I've seen, have underpriced themselves, that they share their music for free, and that try to in that sense gain following, that they share their work for free. And the truth is that with no money on your pockets, you can't really continue your music creation. And that's why there is this kind of idea that artists are these poor bastards. And it's sad. And it's something I want to change myself when going forward. It's something I'm not very comfortable being in a state, because composers, if they join and band together, I feel they could reach something more, and that's what I'm building myself right now in Discord group I'm currently creating. It's in its early days, but in the end it's going to be a place where many art forms combine, and new challenges and new connections may come together and make something even better. This whole composers aloneness thing is that people often, I see composers just staying inside of their bubbles, and when they are not expanding, they do not reach and do not get to positions they want to go to. And I think this is just about changing the mindset as a composer, or having mindsets changed in many places, because more often than not, getting to film projects, getting to games, it's more about who do you know. And if you make connections to people with this way, you get much, much further. Just this week, I was able to meet people from Finnish art scene, and I tell you, this was very valuable for me, because I met writers, dancers, actors, and I got connections from these people who I met, because they, of course, they need music, and I was there to help them and make some music for them. But also I heard and gathered fascinating information about projects these people are working on right now. As example, I met this writer who surprisingly has been able to make his writing, or hers, writing work successful monetarily. So she's able to sell her books And that is, I really honor people who have been able to make their career sustainable in that sense. And that same individual is now expanding the TV. So he's always keeping these ideas open and going and collaborating and meeting new people, and that's what you should do as well. In the beginning of composer career, when you just make your music and feel, oh, I hope someone just listen these. I hope we could just I could just get the projects if someone just miraculously just hears my work. But the thing is that you need to help your music to get heard much of the time, and that is very much connected to the composers being not that good salesmen, which is not a shameful thing if you sell your music. It should be honored. And also composers are, it's very hard to market something which you made with care and love. I know that from my own experience, and that's why this channel in the future we're going to be having more discussions about topics like how could composer go and join projects, how composers could make that they could actually make living with their music, and how composers undervalue their work, and thus all composing and that sort of thing is expected to be very low priced. But there's a way out of that, and in future we're going to be having discussion on that. But what we just said about rivalries and composers in the communities I've met in Facebook and stuff like that, they do not really want to discuss about it. It's kind of like taboo, and I feel I'm going to be getting hate from this view, and I think it's okay right now, because I feel I need to start a discussion. I feel I know that in my channel right now there are these potentially great composers who have just begun their journey, and I know these people are desperate to have information about the area of expertise they want to go into, and I know these people would find it valuable to hear what kind of discussion there is going in composer communities. It's just sad that the misery that composers have is more oftentimes than not self-made, because if a guy like me, who had no connections whatsoever, who had not that big amount of money in the beginning, I've been able to make my composing career and my brand, what I've been building, quite big actually. Looking at my scale where I began, which was nothing, zero. So you can do it as well, and other composers could. But oftentimes when I approach my colleagues, it's a brick wall. It's so much a brick wall. And I'm this kind of guy who just, of course, we have to care about ourselves and myself and that sort of thing. That's what you should do when you build a business. But more often than not, connections, discussions, they can inspire and make new ideas much more than just blocking people and saying they're rivals and enemies. And I think, just keep open-minded. And that's all. I think that has been able to get me to so many positions where I am. And yeah, that's what you should keep in mind. Anyhow, that's what we discuss here at Eluukkanen Composer Talk every week. Many new topics and fascinating things about composers' life, how composers make their careers, and I'm here to tell you that is possible. You can be a composer with your own music, with your own story, and get people excited about it. I've been able to make it in my own channel, of course, still growing, but still, it's going. So, if that's something you're interested about, be here, subscribe, and like this video. Also, share it in and give it to your fellow composers. Wherever you are, whoever you are, I wish you a great day. See you later.